So, just for starters, who are you?
I'm Estella.
What would you say is like an average day for you?
I'm a university student, so waking up, going to uni, doing uni work, sometimes going to some XR meetings and stuff, or the pub with some friends.
Yeah. Did you mention that you worked part-time?
Not when I'm at uni, but when I'm at home, I work.
Okay, whereabouts do you work?
In my mum's shop.
What does she sell?
It's like a gift shop. It's very like this and that, just loads of different things.
Are any of your friends and family part of XR?
Yes, I've got quite a few friends in Manchester who are part of XR, and then my mum's actually recently joined back at home.
That's cool, yeah.
With like the well-being side of things. So.
What I'm guessing from what you said that your mum's now a member, but what do your family think of XR?
Yeah, they're really supportive. I think at first my mum was kind of a little bit cautious of the whole arrestable side thing, but at the same time, when other people's mums and stuff had talked to her about it and say like, oh, I really don't want her to get involved because of the arrestable thing, my mum sort of just thought like, it's not as important as what we're doing.
Yeah, definitely. When did you become more environmentally aware?
Obviously I was always kind of minorly aware of it because of like the school curriculum and things like that, but they don't really go into how like messed up everything is. So probably after the April protests when I went along for the first time, and I saw like a presentation sort of thing with like lots of stats and basically just telling us how awful everything was, and I was like, oh, okay. And so that's kind of when I started to be more aware.
Where would you say you sort of align politically?
Left-wing Labour. / Green, actually.
Why did you join XR?
I think just the second I saw it, I sort of thought wow, this is quite a big movement. They look like they're actually getting some kind of coverage and being listened to a bit at least. And once I heard all the stats and how awful everything was, I was like, I need to do this. This is kind of like my duty as someone who lives on the earth. Like I have to be a part of it.
What do you think of like the methods of XR?
I think in part they are quite successful, but at the same time they definitely make it less inclusive, which is quite a big problem, I think, and there needs to be more information available to people on other roles that aren't just getting arrested or doing arrestable actions, because there's so much more to it than that, but that's what it seems from the outside, and that can be really exclusionary.
What would you say is a typical reaction of people when you tell them you're a member of XR?
Lots of like apathy, so like someone needs to do it, I guess. Yeah, that's great that you're doing this, and it's lots of just kind of general support really, but you don't often get too many people who are like, oh my god, no way, can you help me get involved, which is kind of what I'd like to see more of.
Yeah.
Have you gotten any negative responses?
Not really, just because I think the people that I sort of... Oh, actually, no, that's not true. There's been like a few negative responses of like people that I've met at parties and things like that, like random people, but not of close like friends and family and stuff, because I guess the people I surround myself with are often people who have kind of similar views to me.
What do you think that the group will sort of become or will do in the future?
I don't know. I'm hoping that our like demands are listened to and we won't have to continue disrupting everything. But at the moment, that's not really the way things are going. So I guess continuation and maybe even a bit more radicalisation.
Kind of following on from that, do you think the group would ever dissolve or come to an end?
There is the worry of that in the kind of way it's run, like the decentralised aspect of it is like means that kind of anyone can say they're XR and then do something, and then we'll get a really terrible reaction from it, and that could, if it was something really extreme, maybe that would lead to the dissolving of it, but hopefully not.
Similar to the tubes incident.
Yeah, exactly. So like that was obviously not too much of a huge thing that it meant everything collapsed, but that wasn't the greatest thing just because it was very disheartening after 2 weeks of the rebellion and putting like everything you've got emotionally and physically into it, to have that be the end to it and that be what all the media covered. It's just like, especially because they did a poll and a load of people said like 70% said they disagreed with it, and it was just a bit frustrating, but yeah.
Would you say arrests are actually effective, and does it discourage people from joining?
I'd say it is effective in the sense that all other forms of protests have been exhausted and not listened to, like going on marches and things like that. You don't get the same response. Whereas if you break the law and people get arrested, there's way more media coverage. It's a waste of resources and money, and so like hopefully it means people will listen to us more. But I think it definitely does discourage people from joining off their own back. Like if they have other people they know that can help them out with it, then they are more likely to join. But being alone and wanting to join it, I reckon it would deter people, definitely.
What does the group mean to you?
It's just this massive community of people that I absolutely love, and they feel like family now, which is great. And it's a nice place to be when you're feeling really anxious about the climate, because there's people there who know exactly how you're feeling, and so you can kind of talk to them, and it makes you feel a lot less powerless because there's other people that are willing to do stuff for it, like to the extent that you are.
And you kind of already mentioned it in that answer, but sort of what do you think of the people within XR?
Oh, they're great. Yeah, they're really nice and very welcoming and always lovely.
Would you say there's a certain way of like dressing or looking, or you have to be a certain way to sort of get into the group, or?
No, I don't think so. There's so many. If you go going along to the general meetings, you kind of realise that it's actually just every kind of different person, from way older people to people who are probably like the youth strikers and still in school and things like that. I think from the outside maybe it looks like that because the media tends to focus on the uncorrupted, crusty side of things. But other than that,
we definitely, going into making this, kind of wanted to definitely get a range of people that are sort of within the group, because to sort of move away from the kind of label, like you said, of kind of left wing, crusty, and just maybe, meet some older members or even younger members, or one of the first things we sort of said to each other was like, it'd be great if we could just find like someone who's like a father or a mother of two and just has a job, and does XR part-time kind of thing.
Generally just ordinary people.
Yeah. That's
what they are.
Yeah, that's what we kind of wanted to definitely kind of showcase the most, is that it's just normal people, and it's not a kind of this fragmented part of society of just this group of kind of maniacs, which isn't true. Is there anything you would change about XR?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I said it a little bit earlier, but to do with like, number one, definitely decentralising from London, because a lot of the resources are all central around London at the moment, and that can be really frustrating when you're in different parts. Like, I mean, Leeds at least at the moment is like, it's becoming a bigger group, and so, but there's still lots of little groups like Hull and things like that who definitely, I don't know, need more attention almost. And also the fact of everything, like it being centred around arrest is quite difficult, and it's not very inclusive.
What do you think would happen if groups like XR were never created?
I guess no one would ever know of the climate crisis and the dire situation that we're in, because the government doesn't tell us. So who is going to tell us apart from people like us?
Going on from that, how would you sort of describe the state of the environment right now?
Deteriorating very, very quickly at a rapid rate, like a lot faster than is being like widely spread, which is very upsetting. But yeah.
what do you think of the media representation of the group, and do you think it's justified?
I think they obviously do the classic thing of focusing on all the negatives. Like whenever one bad thing happens, that's what defines the entire movement rather than all the small wins that we've been getting. And it's sometimes like it's justified in some ways. Like some articles are really interesting reads about like the like wanting to decolonize XR and make it more inclusive, and those I think are justified. But then the fact that the BBC didn't cover us at all for most of London was absolutely ridiculous, and that's a news source that people really rely on and trust. And for them to not cover any of it, even though there was a protest genuinely staged outside the BBC, which they used a picture of in an article but didn't mention XR, was just like ridiculous.
Would you say the media helps XR in any ways?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes there are articles that are more positive, and I think with them spreading the word about us in general is quite helpful, because then people are more likely to look us up anyway and find out for themselves what they think of us, and then decide if they're going to join or not.
How does it make you feel when people kind of ignore or deny the kind of science and statistics and evidence for kind of climate change?
It's frustrating, but it's also quite sad, because often those are the people who are the most vulnerable and believe exactly what they're told. Like we did some swarming, which is where you block the road for like 7 minutes at a time, and then clear and then do it again. And part of that is like you go up the traffic to try and kind of like calm everyone down and just say we're only going to be 7 minutes. And some guy stuck his head out the window and said, Donald Trump doesn't believe in it, I don't believe in it. And it was just sort of like, it was such a frustrating thing to hear, but also it was just quite sad, because if that's who he's believing, that shows how vulnerable that person is to just taking in whatever anyone tells them, which is kind of upsetting.
Kind of final question we've got written down. So have you been involved kind of in the kind of physical rebellions, and we just sort of wanted to know what it's kind of felt like, or you know, were you scared, or was it kind of a sense of community, or kind of what was going on?
It was sort of everything, really. I was down for the October Rebellion for most of the 2 weeks. I actually got arrested on the second day in the morning because the northern site was being taken, and so me and my boyfriend de-locked ourselves and super glued our hands to just kind of make it as difficult as possible for them to move us on. But a lot of the time it was, I don't know, you had real highs where there was such a sense of community and you were having such a great time, but then real lows when the police, like, their reactions to us was so unjustified this time, that you saw things that were so upsetting. Like, I cried at least 3 times a day probably in that time. One time we're at Trafalgar Square, and there's like a line of policemen like stopping us from going on the road, and this, I think she was about 91 maybe, on a Zimmer frame broke through them, and they actually dragged her trolley until she fell to the floor. And seeing things like that was just like hideous. I was never scared, I don't think, just because you have this community around you that you know will support you through everything, and there's never a moment where you think, I'm alone in this, whether or not you know anyone around you or not. Like the whole time when I was like sat waiting to be arrested, there was a police liaison, there was loads of wellbeing people offering me biscuits, blankets, jumpers, anything. And so yeah, there's never a moment I felt scared, but yeah, ups and downs.
Yeah. Have you got anything you want to?
Yeah, if you could talk more about does it affect you as a student in any way, being part of XR?
In some ways, just because it's so important, and the fact that kind of I've only realised my passion for it in the past however many months since April, it means that often when I'm sat in my lectures or doing work or stuff or something like that, I just sort of think like, oh my god, this is so unimportant. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know why I'm here. You get this complete disillusionment, especially since coming back from the rebellion. Like, the first week back at uni was just weird, and I just felt completely like, I don't know why I'm here at all. But yeah, in other ways it's supportive because you actually meet other students through it as well. So then you have more friends at uni and stuff. It also means that I'm not just doing uni work, like half the time I'm doing XR stuff, which is nice to fill my time up with something productive rather than just going out or drinking or whatever.
Yeah. Does the university like have a specific view on it? Have they voiced any opinion?
Recently they completely divested from all their investment in fossil fuels, so that was a good step forwards. They've obviously probably still got some ties somewhere. I'm not 100% sure on their view of it, but yeah, they seem supportive-ish. We were trying to, there's one thing where we were trying to hold a party for the planet outside the union, but because we applied for it too late, because we'd just been really busy and it was just coming back from the holidays in summer and stuff, they didn't actually allow us to have any power because we hadn't submitted our form in time, which was kind of annoying, but other than that they seem to be supportive.
Sorry?
Have you got anything else you want to say?
Let's see here.
You can have a look at this if you can.
Oh yes, thank you. Oh shit, we've gone through all of them, haven't we? No?
I'd say what would a typical kind of XR meeting kind of feel like, and what would you say you kind of contribute the most to the group?
So it's only like recently that the meetings have actually started working properly, because in order for the meetings to work you need to have functioning working groups, which are these things that are like based around something that contributes to XR. So the music working group, which can put on things like fundraisers, or the samba band for protests and things like that. There's an actions working group that's just been set up, which is focused around planning actions in Leeds and things like that. So now that those are actually starting to be up and running, I think the meeting's going to get a lot better, because it's going to be more of like, come in, all in your working groups, announcements, check-ins, and then feedback from all the working groups and how they can help each other. So that's how it should work. It hasn't been like that so far just because nothing's been up and running since obviously all the students were away over the summer, and that's quite a big part of the group. But yeah.
I know there's like loads of smaller things that you're constantly trying to do, but is there like one big thing that you're all working on right now, trying to...
Not currently, I don't think. There's nothing massive. I mean, the actions group are trying to like really quickly plan 12 days of Christmas actions, but like there's nothing humongous that we're working towards yet, no.
How would you say kind of, obviously in terms of scale it would changes hugely, but the kind of feel of XR in Leeds and kind of this sort of area compared to London, where it's kind of definitely more focused?
I think the Leeds group is like quite big, and I guess in London, because you obviously have all the different local groups, I'm not 100% sure how it works properly there, but I'm guessing that the actual local groups are probably similar sizes to Leeds, or if not smaller maybe. So yeah, I'm not actually too sure how it works in London.
That's cool.
Yeah, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Maybe just highlight the fact that there are other roles other than arrestables. Like, there's so much to do with wellbeing, because when you're outside on the streets of London or the streets of anywhere, like in Manchester at the Northern Rebellion, it's freezing and you're surrounded by police, which can be really intimidating to some people. And so there's roles like the Red Rebels, who are the kind of, have you ever seen them? They're like the ones that are dressed all in like these red like gowns sort of things and have the white face paint. They're quite terrifying. But they're really good in kind of like dissolving tension almost. Like on the first night we had these police and they were slowly just kind of like moving really like close to all of us, like we were like so close to each other, and then the Red Rebels just sort of suddenly came in because they're like a silent group and went really slowly all along the police line, like looking the police officers like directly in the face, and they were just like, the police officers kind of just like didn't know what to do and was so uncomfortable, and it meant that all of us kind of just, all the tension that we'd had because the day had been chaotic, just kind of went, and everyone was just like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then, like, yeah, well-being, obviously the food, people need food to function. So at protests, that's a big part of it. Actually, the Hare Krishnas often come down and provide food for us at, like, all the protests. It's pretty cool.
That's it.
But,
I've just thought of something else now as well. Is there anything, for example, like, that you do in your home or here or in London, where you're just trying to consciously be, I guess, more green in general, sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the whole thing of being way more conscious about waste and like plastic and things like that. I also slowly from April gradually declined my meat and dairy intake, and now I'm finally a vegan after coming back from the October protests. So that's like a conscious decision I've made. And I thought it would be really difficult, but it's not that hard. It turns out that most of my meals are vegan anyway. It's just the addition of like cheese and stuff like that. Yeah, and actually, our bills in this house, we have like, it's like carbon neutral electricity or something like that, I think, pretty sure.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
What would you say is kind of like, for someone that doesn't really know it, like if right now you were to see someone that had no idea about the kind of environment crisis whatsoever, what would be like a kind of really quick thing you would sort of say they could do to help?
I mean, yeah, cutting down on your meat and dairy intake, because the farming industry is like quite a big like polluter and cause of loads of like biodiversity loss and stuff like that. I guess just helping to spread the word a bit more, because lots of people still don't know about it, which is quite shocking because it's the entire world. But yeah.
Alright, cool.
Yeah.
Have you got anything else?
No, I don't.
Should we cut?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.